All right, Jenna. Well, first and foremost, thank you for your time. I know you're extremely busy, but I'm honored to have you, on the show. And obviously, I've been a huge supporter of what you all have been building at Comcast, and try to do everything I can to uplift the companies and really just uplift everything that you guys are doing to push the industry forward. But I really want to start, back at the beginning, the inception of Comcast SportsTech as an accelerator. What was it like kind of onboarding that first cohort of companies and some of the challenges that you all face getting this off the ground, if any?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. More than that, thank you so much for supporting our portfolio companies over the years. It is sort of every once in a while that pinch me moment that we've now invested in 50 companies. And so we've learned a lot along the way. And I love sharing our origin story because we did have the interesting timing, I should say, of launching sports tech January 14th of 2020. And so we all know what happened, world tilted left, even sports went on pause. But it didn't change our conviction in wanting to have outside voices in working with entrepreneurs, staying at the forefront of shaping the future of sports. What it did change for us in particular, though, was the type of technology that we were looking at. This idea was, germinated back in 2018. And it was really, how do we stand up an innovation engine that runs before, during, and after the Olympics? So spent a lot of time with like ski and snowboard and USA Swimming to understand what are the problems we're solving. How are you using technology to help athletes? For us, things like the Olympics, that is our innovation playground. We've made significant investments in sports IP. And as you've mentioned on so many occasions, that is really strategic IP, and we want to make sure we're getting the most value out of it. So from that very first cohort, we did decide to push it out and thinking that, oh, by 2021, we'll all be together in person. Unfortunately, our very first cohort was all 100% virtual until we were safely able to come back together in cohort two and beyond. But I think we learned a ton from that, that there's efficiencies that come with that in terms of exposure to business leaders in different parts of the organization that aren't required to necessarily, come together in a place or a space. But we've really evolved since then from what is a typical 3-month program to a 6-month program. One of the main reasons for that is these are very advanced companies. They have existing clients and customers that they're serving today. So this is about just-in-time learnings to help them build a sustainable business. And so we've got to really build this around how they support their existing customers. 6 months also gives us time to really dig in and test and pilot this technology. At the end of the day, this is an R&D platform to see what makes sense to integrate into the business, to license, to really unlock cost savings, operational efficiencies, and net new revenue where possible, and do that in partnership with some of the biggest, best sports brands in the world.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack there, but I want to start with you mentioned the timeline of the accelerator, and I think a lot of people might not understand kind of what goes on within an accelerator within the time that you spend interacting with the team and partners and really trying to scale and grow a product. So can you break down like what that timeline looks like from the point where like companies are onboarded to when they exit?
Yeah, absolutely. So uh, let me back up to kind of the selection
Yeah.
process too, because again, because they have an opportunity to work with some business leaders from some of the biggest sports brands in the world, we have to stay really, really close to understanding what are the innovation needs and priorities of a PGA Tour versus a NASCAR versus Sky Sports or NBC Sports, whether that's production or other areas of our business. So we spend a lot of time in, I would say, that summer timeframe, really doing what we call innovation discovery sessions with each of the partners. And it's asking all those tough questions. Where are the big cost centers? What's the technology that's missing to help unlock efficiencies? That really helps us narrow down, because when you have 1,600 companies apply, you really need to have a good rubrics to get down to right time, right opportunity, right product fit at the onset. So then we get it down to the top 50. That's where all of the partners weigh in, and they have about a 3-week period of time to review decks, traction, see product demos, really dive in and answer some high-level questions of, would this make a difference to the business? Would you be interested in interviewing and working with them? That gets us down to the top 25, but the real magic happens when we're interviewing those startups. As you can imagine, we stuff that Zoom room with all of the subject matter experts so we can ask a lot of the tough questions and make sure that the technology is at a place where we can really get our arms around it and have line of sight of how we'll test and pilot it. So by the time we get to the 10 that we select, we have onboarded them with a real intention of who they're going to work with first within the program. So think of that 6 months as one-to-one, one-to-many in the consortium, one to the world is sort of our model. So
Mhm.
at kickoff that we did earlier this, I guess now 2 weeks ago, that was really about deeply understanding us. So it was everything from fireside chats to understand why are we spinning off some of our cable networks into a separate business, to WNBA came and did a fireside chat with us along with Atlanta Dream. So understanding sort of trends. And then each of the partners had their own table and they came around in small groups and really just dove deeply on understand this is how Premier League thinks about their production business, their digital business. Likewise for us, for Peacock, what are the top business priorities and mandates? What are all the opportunities? Because 2026 in particular is a spoil of riches when it comes to all of the sports. Um, we'll have the Super Bowl back on NBC. We'll have NBA. We will have the Winter Olympics. We'll have FIFA World Cup. So they can get an understanding and start to connect the dots of where could their technology add value. But when they're coming in, again, they've got their one assigned commercial advisor, and that's somebody from the Sports Partner Consortium that raised their hand and said, got line of sight of how I'm going to test this, and I know how I will measure business results from it. So that's where we call it that sort of one-to-one. The middle of the program we call Sports Tech Combine. So that's really where we all come back together again with all of the startup teams, our sports partners, and that's a reminder of what the other 9 have been up to. So we
Mhm.
do it in a format of the startup team stands up. This is how my commercial partner is testing our technology. And there's something pretty unique about having that sports partner there to say, this is why we're doing this. These are the business results we need to see. If we can achieve XYZ, this is what it looks like going forward. And then they spend time with each of the partners again at those small tables. And that's where we unlock even more pilots and proof of concepts. So that is, and then the back, I would say 3 months, that back half is really about how do you maximize that? And that's finding additional product market fit for these companies to earn their way to commercial deal. And then where we term it the one to the world, that's really more, again, because our North Star is business development. This is, if they're going to build a sustainable business, they need to find customers and clients well beyond
Yeah.
the Sports Partner Consortium. So this is an opportunity at the end of the program to really showcase to the world, here's what we've accomplished in partnership with our sports tech partners.
So really the mandates, so going back to the selection process, like the mandates that you all choose to focus on are based on the partner needs more than anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. So absolutely. So it is very much anchored in finding what's the right need, right priority, right time. That it's that rubrics that comes together that really helps us select companies that, again, this is about testing and piloting the technology. And it's giving them an opportunity to really showcase what they can do and not necessarily be anchored in a single sport or team or league. It's that extensibility that makes it a much better strategic investment because, we've made an investment, so we've got some skin in the game. And at the end of that 6 month program, we have rigorously tested what makes sense to integrate into the business. And that's helping them find commercial revenue coming in to build a sustainable business and then obviously de-risk that initial investment.
100%. Thinking about the startup world, like the reality is that most startups, don't make it past a certain time frame. So when you look at the companies, the 50 plus companies that have been through the accelerator, what separates the companies and the founders that have been able to excel and really grow and scale and possibly exit their companies as opposed to ones who haven't? Are there any like certain traits or qualities that you've noticed in the founders when they come into the accelerator? And this, might apply across the board, whether it's sports or any other industry, but like what are those specific qualities that you maybe look for or see in a founder when they first enter the accelerator?
Yeah, I love this question. I would say it's the founding teams that have real conviction and passion in what they're building and their vision, but are not completely tied to the vision looking exactly as they think it will that day.
Yeah,
They are the ones that are willing to ask questions, challenge their assumptions. If you build your business around a false assumption, that's why you see a lot of the failure rates. You go too far down the path of building something that the market doesn't want. It's not feasible, or it's not financially viable for a sustainable business, or there's just not the desirability there. And so I think there's something pretty powerful about having essentially what works out to be 300 plus, industry leaders across all of the sports partners in the consortium to help them guide. That's pretty unique access. And it's the ones that really put in the time and effort to build trusted relationships, earn that business, come in with that mindset of, I'm going to deeply understand your needs, and I'm going to let that shape what the product roadmap looks like to continue adding value.
I love that. Obviously, we both spend a lot of time in the sports tech area, and it's a hot, overall ecosystem and sector, with a lot of different verticals and a lot of different needs and problems that need to be solved. Outside of kind of what the accelerator focuses on from a mandate perspective, are there any specific areas that you have affinity for that you're spending a lot of time researching? I know AI is like on everyone's radar, but even outside of that, are there any like specific verticals within sports tech that you think have a lot of upside or are like intriguing to you personally?
So, it probably stems from being an athlete in college, but it's the player performance pieces that I'm probably
Yeah.
most excited about. If you simplify it down, it's putting the best product out there, whether that's on the field, the court, ice. When you are making sure that your coaching staff is bringing in the best athletes, they are primed to compete, they're avoiding injury, you're going to put the best product out there. And then everything else around that just naturally works off of that experience. It's, margins of improvement that mean you go to the playoffs. It extends the season, ticket revenue, merchandise sales, all of that. That flywheel happens. That's where people are tuning in because, oh my goodness, I have to see this game. I have to see these rivalries happen. So I personally think that athlete player performance, it just makes sure that where you've invested in sports and those iconic live must-see moments, that they are the best of the best because you've got athletes that are pushing themselves beyond the status quo in the same way that we're trying to do from an entrepreneurial standpoint within our company.
Mhm. Yeah, amazing. And you mentioned being an athlete in college. I always think that well, I love the fact that, being an athlete, there are certain transferable skills and traits that you learn that can really carry you into the professional world and help you be successful. What are some of the lessons that you took from being a runner that you apply to everything that you're doing now with Comcast Sports Tech?
So I had the good fortune of running for Baylor University. And what I really was for was the opportunity to run for Coach Hart. And Michael Johnson was our assistant coach. He trained with him throughout his career. So I got to see him preparing for the 96 games where
Wow.
he had, the belief in himself to wear gold shoes of all things. I am 100% certain that when he stepped on the line, he could look right, look left, and know he had already won it because he'd put in the work. He had done every single thing to make sure he was prepared physically, mentally. And so much of that, I think, stems back to Coach Hart and his philosophy, which I apply very much to business today, which is he would always say that he recruited for good citizens first, great athletes second. understanding that, yes, you can bring in the best of the best, but it's the chemistry of the entire team. It's the collection of all the points coming together that is the win or not. And I think that is so reflective of the way to build a culture, a winning culture, is you're putting yourself out there for your team. You're putting in the work, you are having a plan, working the plan, picking yourself up from defeat. The resiliency and the leadership alone that comes from sports is really powerful. And I think I believe the quote is, it's upwards of 98% of senior women in executive roles. It's because they played, somewhat up to the college level. And I think
Yeah.
it's because of all of those inherent life skills that you pick up along the way.
Yeah, I love that. Super insightful. Getting back to the partners and the other brands and companies you all work with, obviously there's numerous relationships that you have to maintain when it comes to ensuring that the partners are gaining value at the end of the day from the companies that you all are working with. How do you balance and maintain the relationship with these different organizations? And then furthermore, like how did you identify that these were the right partners that Comcast Sports Tech wanted to work with?
Yeah, it's we put a lot of thought into the partner consortium and sort of who we wanted to bring in and why. We were really intentional. We didn't want to pick off individual teams. We wanted to go more at a league level, again, because of the efficiencies that come with that and the ability to scale. But I would say the number one criteria in any of this is, first off, do we have sports rights with them? Because if you do, you already have shared alignment around that fan experience, whether that's in the living room, making it as interactive as possible, that you're tuning in, you're watching it, it's crowded with people, you have the FOMO of I want to be there. Those types of things. We needed to know that we had partners that we were bringing in that were very team oriented and would play well in that innovation sandbox. So I'll kind of break down each one a little bit.
Yeah.
So NASCAR in particular, Comcast Business powers about 13 of the tracks, long time sponsorship and that ecosystem, everything from the Xfinity series to now advancing that to Xfinity Fastest Lap. We have a very close and endemic relationship with Michael Jordan's team, 23XI, again, because the amount of data that comes off the car, the telemetry of that, but then also if you can find a way to like prove out the value of your technology over some of these racetracks where I think Daytona alone, you can fit like 17 football fields
That's wild.
inside the racetrack. Exactly. And this is a sport where you get incredible access to the drivers, the athleticism of the team that is jumping over and changing the tires and the pit crew and all of that. But more than anything, when you make a sponsorship investment into NASCAR, I would say they're probably one of the best in making sure that you're realizing B2B business out of it. And most of the other sponsors in there are very endemic to the sport, and there's a lot of shared value there.
Mhm. For sure.
Obviously, for Golf Channel, you're not going to have a 24/7 channel devoted to golf and not have a deep and close relationship with PGA Tour. So a lot that we can bring in terms of value there, whether it's some of the acquisitions that we did to build Golf Now, where we support 10,000 golf course properties. We want people out there playing. It's the people that are playing that want to get better at it, that are tuning in each weekend throughout the long PGA Tour season. Pretty excited about this weekend. We've got players coming up, and Comcast Business has a whole lineup of industry thought leaders and an executive summit that we're holding there. And I'll be on one of the panels and talking about the technologies that we've invested in and why we've invested in them. But more than anything, it's like, don't just listen to us, like go experience the the way that Moby is creating a multi-view to see, from the 18th hole, follow your favorite players, those types of things that make it much more of an interactive experience on the tournament, to Rivalry Tech, which will have their kiosks out there so that you can order food and have it delivered right to you. Like this is everything about making sure that in-person experience is just as powerful as the broadcast experience, because in the living room, sometimes that could be the best way to
Mhm.
take in that tournament. Premier League is another one that is absolutely, I would say, a fantastic partner for Peacock in particular. Great season, the ability to be able to, on our streaming platform, to be able to watch those matches, the unique rivalries of that. It's a long season. It is a wonderful acquisition tool and a retention tool, frankly, for Peacock. And then you look at Notre Dame. We have
Yeah.
that again, very unique relationship that dates back to 1991. And again, you've got a diversity of sports. You've got a university that is very, very, they're tied to tradition, but they're not afraid to innovate and really embrace that. And they have a student body of passionate sports fans, as well as students that can add value to some of our portfolio companies as well. And then if you look at all of the three Olympic NGBs, again, I would say the Olympics, that is our playground. Those 17 days, we are looking at innovating in every way possible to make sure that you enjoy and you have the best seat in the house for those like just awe-inspiring sports moments.
Can we expect any future university partnerships by chance? So you may tease it a little bit or no?
Well, I mean, again, it would kind of have to fit in that sort of rubrics.
Yeah.
A sponsorship investment, or we've made media rights investment that makes sense. And again, it's also looking at NBA, they're coming back to NBC. They also have NBA Launchpad. So
Yeah.
we have that same shared ethos in terms of we've got to have that entrepreneurial spirit and looking at what are the new and innovative technologies coming down the line just to make sure that we're super serving fans in unique ways. So we have been much more intentional in working with them. Even prior to that, great example in Venue was in our very first cohort. They were in theirs as well. Plantiga in both of our programs last year. So,
Mhm.
and then Stellar Algo, well, they did not go through NBA Launchpad. NBA Equity did make an investment in them. So it just shows that, again, if you're going to put the best product out there, you have to make sure that you're constantly pushing beyond the status quo. And so we love the leaders within all of our sports partners that have that same, let's be, curious, let's be willing to push ourselves to make sure that we're bringing fans anything and everything they want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting back to the founder side, because you mentioned 1,600 applicants, which is a lot to swift through. Um, and obviously, like a lot of these companies may not be a fit. So, what would you say are some misconceptions that a founder might have about going through an accelerator?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is, um, and it's the hardest one to answer, which is at what stage do we need to be? And it's not necessarily that they need to be bumping up to Series A or Series A. It really has to do with, is the technology at a place where we can get our arms around testing and piloting it? So it's got to have some traction out there. It's got to have some desirability, feasibility. Uh, for it to break through to the top 10. I will say for a while, I'd mentioned, athlete player performance being one of the areas that I'm particularly interested in. That was always a hard one because a lot of times a founder is looking to, yes, test and prove out their technology at an elite athlete level, but further down the line, they're really looking at a B2C type of a opportunity. We need more of that B2B,
Yep.
right? So that it's adding that direct value piece that has an extensibility into what an end consumer might ultimately experience and how they're, addressing the changing consumption of sports, younger viewers, they want that interactivity, they want that hyper personalization. And so we've got to have a really wide and fresh perspective of how we pull together the right set of teams. And I think this year was a really interesting one because it was very much focused in several companies that kind of fit in that immersive fan experience. Like, what does next gen broadcasting look like? And that can be everything from, liminal space and their wraparound holographic experiences for large audiences that is outside of the home, but even more so, even in the home too, of like, how do we get some of that gamification and loyalty, those types of things, or live language translation. Just again, like let's make the sport as accessible as possible because it's a global fan base. So I think that one has been a really interesting place. So that kind of helped us solidify on a set of companies there. The other one, and you spoke to it, it's just data-driven performance, anything that can really create that personalized engagement experience. And a lot of that is accomplished through AI, but that can be conversational AI that helps you really navigate, like, where should I park that's closest to my seat?
Mhm.
And having somebody like Pam, which is on-site navigational technology and wayfinding, so you can see crowd analytics, you can really deeply understand the behavioral patterns of fans. Oftentimes in surveys, they'll say, hey, where's the healthy stuff in January in
Mhm.
terms of food and things like that. But actually, it's better to look at what are they actually buying. And so that sort of behavioral data we're always looking for. And then I would say for this one in particular, again, sports rights, this is valuable IP. You want to make sure you're getting the greatest return on that investment. And so we're really looking at what is the future of commerce around this and monetization, and how can you find modern and elegant ways to shop the moment or have very personalized, um, dynamic ads that are relevant to you on a streaming platform because of who you are and your interests. You should be seeing different ads than I'm seeing. It just, again, it goes down to that personalization. And I think there's a really interesting path here to really test out what does TV commerce really look like and how do we create something that fans find engaging.
Yeah, no, that's really good insight. Last couple questions before we wrap up. For any founder that might be listening to this and wants to apply or kind of cut through the noise to get their company seen within Comcast SportsTech Accelerator, what advice would you give them on how to do so?
So the first and best place to start is go to our website, ComcastSportsTech.com. You can get a really deep understanding of our partners, the types of technology they're looking to invest in. We've got videos, you can see some of the leaders. I think that's a great place to start. And when you fill out the application, again, it just gets you on our radar so that we can start to correlate, ooh, interesting here. This is exactly what PJ Tour is saying that they want. So that's a really good first place to start. But I would also say our deal flow team does an incredible job of getting out there at all the different conferences. Because at the end of the day, yes, you're investing in the technology and the sector it's in, but more important than anything, it's the belief in that founding team, that that's the team we want to roll up our sleeves and work alongside. So at the end of the day, it comes down to spend time with our team. We have now two different examples. Echo Bar applied several times, and it was actually Jose on our team that saw them again at one of the conferences, and he's like, "Are you going to apply again?" And he's like, "Should I?" And they had developed that relationship over time, and they've really gotten their start in entertainment and now are moving over into sports. And I could tell you, that is a team that it was just needed to be right time, right opportunity, right urgency, and that happened. Same thing with Rivalry Tech, which has been one of our standout successes as well. They had applied in cohort one, but they were in cohort three. And again, you now look at what they've been able to accomplish. And yes, where they, can do food delivery all the way to your seat for the New York Mets. They're doing it now for PJ Tour at the Players Championship as well. But more importantly, it's so extensible into other areas. You look at healthcare, that same use case in the Houston Methodist Hospital system. If you're a doctor or a nurse, last thing you want to be doing is standing in line. Wouldn't you rather use your breaks and your time more efficiently? So they've made tremendous headway in healthcare, even more so in some of the other hospitality verticals. And if you look at Comcast Business, those are some of our most important enterprise verticals. So we're always looking for those partnerships where we can open doors for them. And likewise, we can bring them into a customer or a client and say, we understand your business enough that you probably want to meet, let's chat, because their live language translation is going to make it that much easier to order your food in any, 110 languages.
Hmm. Hmm. Last question. Obviously, since you have launched Comcast SportsTech Accelerator, the idea concept of sports being an asset class has evolved in a short period of time. So, looking at the next 5 or 6 years, what's one prediction you have for investing in sports, or something that you think will happen within that period?
I think if you are willing to make a long-term commitment, and you think about all the aspects around that IP, and that could be anything from the technology that's going to go into the new arena that we're building in partnership with the 76ers and HSBE. That has got to be the most forward-thinking, progressive arena because it's going to be so woven into the fabric of our community in South Philadelphia. And technology is going to be a path to making that really personalized. So I think you're going to see more and more of our portfolio companies that are anchored in some of the biggest sports stadiums and most progressive stadiums and around the world, frankly, to make sure that it is the best experience possible. I would love more than anything that when we come to LA 28 for the Olympics, that we're seeing a vast majority of the companies in our portfolio elevating that fan experience, whether you're enjoying the 17 days over, in the living room experience, or you get to be there in person, that we have taken every opportunity to bring fans closer to those awe-inspiring moments. We talk about it all the time of like, let's deliver you the best seat in the house, and that could be in the stadium or in the living room, but it's technology that'll get us there.
Jenna, this has been incredible. I know you dropped the website, but let everybody else know who's listening, where they can learn more, find out more about the accelerator and connect with you.
Yeah, yeah. So that's at our ComcastSportsTech.com. Again, educate yourself on the partners, really kind of think about it from their perspective of what do they need to be solving for to reach fans. And fans are fluid these days. They're sometimes they'll go with an athlete and not necessarily stay loyal to a fan, or they are consuming sports in a completely different way. So look for what's in it for them and see where you're, help us kind of tie the dots in terms of where you would add value in that.
Thank you so much, Jenna. Appreciate your time.
Excellent. Thank you, Malcolm.